Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 66 of Blown Speakers. I'm Dave Hoenigman coming in from Yokohama, Japan. And joining us again is Greg Genco coming in from Buffalo, New York. And a first-time guest coming in from just outside of Buffalo, right, is Lara Doyle, right? Welcome, Lara.
Thank you.
And you're old friends with Greg, from what I understand.
That's right. Long time.
Bandmates.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, bandmates. And okay, so I love the album you guys chose because I'm also a great fan of this album. The Raincoats debut album from 1979. Okay, so we'll get into talking about that. But yeah, so when were you guys in a band together?
Well, briefly, it must have been like 1997, 98, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we've played together recently with kind of my family members. And maybe a little bit in between.
I think no, I think after we played, I think when we played at the Mohawk Place, a well-known, punk rock club here in downtown Buffalo.
Yeah.
When we played there, we were known as Vera Cuba Rubin.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Not the best name. And then we played at a friend's apartment near the zoo, guys I went to high school with. I think then we were billed as the Stars.
Yeah. I painted my head
Laura,
for that.
And then I think remained in touch, but we didn't play music again until you came with your husband, your nephew, and your niece, right?
That's right. Yeah.
At about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So
we played at your house a bit, and you came over and played here a bit in my house.
That's right. Yeah, in the basement. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'd like to get back to it again. We just got, everybody got busy with caretaking for aging relatives, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well.
So, Greg, I remember you always used to talk about the mixtapes that Lara would make for you, right? So the legendary mixtapes, right? That were
yeah. So I'd say these tapes, which I have here, and Lara, you also lent me. So here are the tapes you made curated, as well as Genius Plus Love equals Yo La Tango. I think was a cassette tape of the Six Wasp's Nest. So I'd say that the nothing less than seismic, the effect that had on me as a music listener.
I think the first time we met was because I put up an ad, like in one of the music shops.
It was at New World Records.
Yep, I wanted to start a band. I worked at New World Records for a little while. I was really, really bad at working there. Like mostly my job. Yeah, mostly my job consisted of like going and counting how many of like each particular album we had. Like I had to go and count how many CDs or tapes or whatever. And I was really bad at it because it was so boring. I would lose track and I think I was counting wrong. So eventually all they had me doing was making displays, for the shop windows, which was way more fun. So I got promoted through being like incompetent.
I was never hired. I think I asked.
That's because you weren't a girl.
Once, maybe twice. What's that?
That's because you weren't a girl.
Oh.
I think I had a little affirmative action in my favor.
But I remember, so at New World Records, your flyer had a few bands I knew, maybe a few K-record bands, but there were so many I didn't. And then, so after we met, and And maybe we played once with you. I think initially I was on my drums. Maybe you brought your accordion
Probably, yeah.
in the
That's right. When we
basement.
first started, I was bringing the accordion.
Yeah. And then at that time, and that was really distinctive too. Your accordion playing was really cool.
Because I couldn't play it. Again, incompetence.
No, it sounded good. And so, but I remember you gave me this mixtape. Here's She's Bad Because She Wants to Set Things on Fire, which is a Slater-Kinney lyric. But I remember it really as this title. Here's the label, Punk Rock for the Proletariat. But we've got the X-Ray Specs, Oh Bondage Up Yours, Germ-Free Adolescence, I Want to Be Your Dog, Sonic Youth. And then after that, the Raincoats, Fairy Tale in the Supermarket, No Side to Fall In were just, yeah, revelatory. I mean, just really exciting, but really like nothing I had heard before. And then I had heard about the New York Dolls, but I hadn't heard them until this tape. And right after the Raincoats was the New York Dolls Trash. So yeah, this was great. And then you have Patti Smith on here, Anthrax from Gang of Four. Yeah, so it was hugely impactful. So I'd listen to, I remember, and I think at that time
I was trying to groom you at that time. I was trying to groom you to be in a band with me.
Oh, and then the second, here's the one, Greetings from Spontaneous Combustion. So the newcomers, Neutral Milk Hotel, with Naomi. The Clean, Beatnik. I remember that.
It's one of my favorites. Clean are still one of my favorite all-time favorite bands.
So yeah, Radiohead, Exit Music, but I think that it was more above ground, but I think that has aged well, stands up to the test of time. So yeah, so that's how I learned of the Raincoats. Oh, and the Receptionist.
Yeah, so that was my very first band from college, and that was our second little EP that we put out. And that's my mom on the cover.
So you said that's available on Spotify, right?
Not those songs. We put out a CD on Bada Bing, who actually was one of the people one of our friends from college started that record label. So the Bada Bing stuff is on Spotify. And then we also had Tim Alborn put out some of our stuff on like one of his comps, and we were on a couple other different comps. So the Harriet Records family album comp, I think, had a bunch of our songs, or at least a few of them. Okay. It was such a long time ago, I don't remember exactly.
Where is Harriet Records based?
Tim Alborn, who did Harriet Records, I think he might have been from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm not actually sure.
Okay. Yeah. And who's on the back cover?
That's my dad.
Nice.
Oh, I got it.
Oh, and here, Harriet Records, Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Yep, Cambridge, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of album covers, what do you guys make of this cover? I mean, I've always thought it was very impactful, memorable. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
I love it. I love that they have kids, like a little kids chorus on there. I love the colors.
Yeah, it looks like a page from a kid's book or something, right? Like
It looks like even the conductor is a kid.
Yeah.
So my mom was Russian, and my dad is Polish, and it also kind of reminds me of like the little like Russian like Soviet stuff from when my mom was little, with like the pioneers and stuff like that, and like all the Russian choral like music, like the Red Army chorus and stuff. And, Russia is, not a very nice thing in the news right now, but I can, like claw back some respect, maybe because my dad was Polish and he literally fought both the Nazis and the Soviets, so in World War II. But anyway, so I do have some nostalgia for some of that old, Russian culture stuff that this reminds me of.
And there are points on the album where their voices sound like a choir singing together, right? Kind of overlapping and so on.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's good insight. Yeah, certainly their harmonies.
Yeah, I see a lot of overlap between like some of my favorite punk music and like the radier aspects of folk music. That's always been really fascinating to me. So like especially like when I've listened to Slavic folk music or like Scandinavian folk music, there's certain like tonal things, there's certain like vocal harmonizing things, or like, things like screaming and whistling in the background that I always feel like remind me of the Raincoats or or like Kleenex Lilliput, bands like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, that's interesting because when I heard this when I first heard the Raincoats on the mixtape, Lara, it just, to me, it really, so I was listening in, it's like 96, 97. So this was approaching 20 years after it was recorded, but to me, it was just totally new music. But it's interesting how you, with your knowledge and experience, you can connect it to, much older forms of music.
Yeah, well, I was saying, when we were talking earlier, when Greg invited me to do this, I didn't really want to say yes because I don't think of myself as being very good at talking about music because I don't read, music articles. I never remember music trivia for the most part. And I tend to think about music constantly, but in non-verbal, ways. So, I love this album so much, and I think it's been hugely influential on me, but in ways that are like tonal, more than in ways that I could express, verbally through language.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a pretty good job now. Also this cover, kind of childish delight type feeling, which I think kind of radiates from the Raincoats music. So yeah.
And the amateurishness and the messiness. But it's all like, it has a really nice cohesive, visual harmony too.
Well, I'm gonna try it here. On the back of the album,
I have it.
They say that the painting, I was going to try to pronounce the artist's name. Peng Sao Li. So just to give credit to the artist.
Yeah, it's a classic cover, I'd say.
Oh, yes. And I wonder too, so even though I have researched the Raincoats for years, plenty of my information tonight is taken from the 33 1/3 Little Book by Jen Pelly. And in the book, they talk about Rough Trade, the label. I guess it was initially a record shop, but then the label and distribution label, the founder, Jeff Travis, but it was, I'd say more of a leftist, certainly more to the left organization. So I wonder if choosing the cover from Communist China was connected to that. It's an idea that came to me as I was reading about rough trade.
Well, Greg, just for our viewers, what other bands are on Rough Trade, and where is it based, and when did it start?
Oh, geez, now you're putting me on the spot.
Okay,
Rough trade. Well, yeah, I'm gonna. I don't know. I don't know. We're gonna need help from the viewers. I'm drawing a blank.
It's definitely a landmark record company, of course. But
right. Should we stop recording so I can look?
All right.
Okay.
Okay, we did some real-time research on Rough Trade. Yes, Greg, what did we find?
So what Lara just told us, Stiff Little Fingers, Subway Sect, Swell Maps, yes. And that's a favorite of mine.
Television personalities.
Oh, yes. Yes. I love, yes. That's a big favorite, yeah.
That's Beat Happening? That's surprising.
Oh, really?
They must have done something. I'm just looking at a Wikipedia list. British Sea Power.
So a legendary record label, right?
Yeah. Jarvis Cocker.
And then later, so I think they would.
Kleenex.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so Greg, let's see.
Galaxy 500. The Feelies.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you were right.
Oh, nice.
So,
and the Feelies factor on your second mixtape, Greetings from Spontaneous Combustion. So really, yeah, very influential, and really, I mean, what do you call it? Punk, post-punk, laying the foundation for what became indie rock. But very much DIY music.
Looks like even Smiths had some stuff there.
So the Raincoats, right, got together in London in '77, right? This is the original four members, right? We're going to look at here. Perhaps in their legendary cramped rehearsal space, right? So they were living a squatter's lifestyle, right? Like just living where they rehearsed, from what I understand. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I read too.
Wait, not Berry Street. I'm trying to find out the address of that, the practice space.
I was reading a few interviews with Palmolive, and she tells a story about, arriving in London from Spain and just showing up at somebody's house whose address she had and asking them if they could help her find a job. So she got a job washing dishes.
Oh.
They were kind of bemused, here's this strange girl showing up who can barely speak English, asking for help finding a job.
I like that she was washing dishes. That ties into our Palmolive.
Totally, I didn't think of that
concept. Wow.
No wonder she liked it.
Who wouldn't love washing dishes? Makes your hands softer.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. So the original four members get together in London '77. These are some like classic photos of them, right? Greg, do you want to introduce the members?
Sure. So let's see. Well, on the left there's Gina Birch.
Okay.
Oh, and this photo, yeah, and the sweater. And then sitting above her is Anna da Silva. And then to her right is Vicky Aspinall. And then in the front, in a striped shirt, is Palmolive. And her real name is Paloma. I'm trying to find out. I'm not sure of her family name.
All right.
But she was given the name. So according to Wikipedia, Palmolive was the result of, because she was the girlfriend of
Joe Strummer.
Joe Strummer from The Clash. And so his friend and bandmate, Paul Simonon, I guess, jokingly changed it to, mispronounced it as Palmolive.
But then, yeah, she decided to keep that as her name.
Right.
And, you know, of course, I always thought it was a reference to the dishwashing soap, dishwashing liquid, right? Palmolive. And, you know, I think it's kind of in line with the idea of the punks kind of hijacking certain elements of mainstream society to use ironically for their own purposes. That's what I always thought of her name, right?
Really?
And just when I was thinking about it, yeah, I had forgotten about this old ad campaign, which was, you know, on all the time when we were kids, right? About how Madge, women would come to see their beauty consultant Madge, and she would have them soak their hands in Palmolive dishwashing detergent or dishwashing soap, and the idea was that their hands would get softer from using it, which seemed very normal, right? Like just when I was growing up, seeing this commercial. But yeah, when you think about it, it's like just telling women that if they want to be, well, first of all, it's telling them they need to be more beautiful, and if they want to be more beautiful, they should just do more dishes. Is basically what she's what she said.
Not only cleans dishes, but also softens your hands.
Yes, you're soaking in it, right? So yeah, so I wondered if she took that name, you know, somehow to hijack that or commandeer that, and perhaps maybe I'm reaching. But.
Yeah.
I think it's very much in line with the typical aesthetic of the era for punks. Yeah, so it makes sense to me.
I just found her her given name, Paloma Romero, and she was born in Andalusia.
Andalusia.
Andalusia. Brings to mind the John Cale song.
Yeah, totally. And the Pixie song.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Palmolive, Paloma came from Spain, and she grew up under the fascist Franco regime. I found out earlier tonight that Ana da Silva came from Portugal, and that she grew up during the 50s and 60s under the oppressive Salazar regime. I didn't know they had a far-right regime in Portugal as well. Oh yeah, so that's interesting. And I think obviously influential, a catalyst to their philosophies and their spirit in this band.
So they really had something to rebel against, right?
Yeah. Is that a banana? It's in her.
I think so.
Yeah, like a super overripe one. That's the, you know, and it's interesting how, you know, she has like a what would become like a punk new wave look, but it still looks you know, like she did it by herself and became, but you know, kind of personally done, and you know, is put together in a more authentic way, or kind of idiosyncratic way.
Yeah, I think they look so great.
Yeah. I can't see what are on her buttons, or it looks like there's a price tag, or maybe it's just like a dry cleaning
Yeah,
tag.
it looks like a dry cleaning or coat check tag.
So Anna De Silva was the vocalist, guitarist, occasional keyboardist, right?
Wait.
Gina Birch, right? Gina Birch was vocals and bass, right?
Okay, yeah.
Palmolive was the drummer, and Vicky Aspinall, right? Vocals and violin and occasional guitar, right? Let's see, Greg, you had some background info about Vicky.
She was the muso. Am I am I using that British term correctly? She was I guess the one classically trained musician in the band. So I'm quoting Jen Pelly here. Vicky Aspinall's presence negates the persistent myth that the Raincoats were all untrained musicians. She was a classically trained violinist when she joined. Having taken up the instrument at age 10, she started on piano at 6. She attended Trinity College of Music before enrolling at York University, where her studies range from Barrio, Stockhausen to gamelan, electronic studio work, and Brechtian theater. She did her thesis on soul music and rebellion. Her favorite composers were Rachmaninoff, Satie, Sibelius, and Vaughan Williams, though she also enjoyed Bowie and the Beatles, Motown, and Stax. And she's wearing suspenders in that photo.
Yeah, so look great in all these photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely have style. So what do you think? Should we play a track to give our viewers a taste?
Sure.
At this point?
Talking about
Yes.
about Vicky, though, like I was reading in a bunch of the interviews that Palmolive wanted the violin to be like beautiful and clean, and not, she wanted the drums and the guitar to be raw, but not the violin. And I'm so glad she didn't get her way because that violin is really amazing. The way they actually recorded it.
Yeah, it's important to their sound, right? It's very distinctive. Okay. Okay, so we're going to play track 2 off the song. So, Lara, why did you choose No Side to Fall?
It's always been one of my favorites. I like how kind of like shambolic and disjointed and chaotic and weird it is, while also being so catchy, catchy, and it, like we were talking earlier about how things sound like they're falling apart, but they don't really fall apart. They stay on beat, They somehow stay like glued together, even though there's all this chaos whirling around inside it. And I just love that so much. I love the tones of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this song's an excellent example of what they do so well. Yeah. And Greg, you're a big fan of this song?
Oh yeah. Well, you guys, Lara, especially, you said that really well. And it's so what did you say? The time is what, 2.5 minutes?
No. It's less. It's like a minute 50 or something. Yeah.
But it's at the same time, it's like anthemic. It's like an anthem, and it's like so triumphant. It's yeah.
I think it really does sound female, doesn't it? Like there's not many boy bands doing this kind of thing. There's something very, very female about it.
Oh, I think I called it no side to fall. No side to fall in. I forgot the in. Okay, let's check it out.
I hear music outside, and I hear the music inside, no sign to falling, no fall to live until my mind is still my mind, my life. I don't mind today. I hear the music outside, and I hear the music inside. No side to fall in, no fall to live until my mind is still my mind, my life. But I don't mind today.
Wow.
Yeah.
I totally expected bass line of the next track.
I love how jittery and percussive it is, and I totally hear like elements of ethnic folk music in the kind of rambunctiousness and how they sound like they're having so much fun. It sounds like something that people would be dancing around to, like there's great energy. And it's like, again, like sloppy, but it's like the kind of sloppiness of people who really love music and really, kind of know what they're doing. Like they said that they didn't know how to play their instruments, they didn't know what they were doing, but I think they do.
Yeah, I think, fun. I think that's maybe a missing word in discussion about the Raincoats, or maybe not, but that's, yeah.
And when you have like traditional folk music, I'm not talking about like like Joan Baez folk music. I'm talking about like a African or European or South American or Mexican folk music or whatever. Like you have typically people sitting around a house or outdoors or a pub or whatever. So there isn't like professionalism. There isn't like the precision of classically trained musicians. But it is people who love music and love playing music and know how to do what they're doing, So that's what it reminds me of.
And you mentioned tones. Yeah, there's, I mean, that percussion, like it sounds like just like hitting a stick, on a radiator or something, or not a radiator, but just hitting a stick on something. I love when they say today, and then it takes off, and like, today, it's just so uplifting. And I don't know what that, it sounds like Morse code. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I think of it as percussive, but it totally sounds like Morse code too.
Yeah, I don't know if that's guitar or some sort of keyboard, but some sort of doctored,
Is the violin being plucked at one point too? She might have been plucking the violin strings.
Ah, okay, yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm bad at analyzing that type of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. So maybe a little
we
like
went back and listened to it
overdubbing.
again, I bet we can figure it out.
But yeah.
And I wish I could put my finger on like what it precisely is about it that sounds female to me, besides the fact that it's girls' voices. And I think it has something to do with like my experience of being in an all-girl band. like I know we did this, and it sounds like the Raincoats do it, and I often feel like, you know, Kleenex did it. And have you guys heard Grass Widow?
I don't think
They're
so.
a
No.
really, really fantastic band. If you like Raincoats, you'd like Grass Widow a lot, I bet. More recent, from California. I don't think they're still playing anymore, but I think they were, like, maybe, I'm guessing 10 years ago, I'm not sure. But anyway, so like it's like this weird sense that like everybody's playing alone, but they're playing together at the same time. Like everybody's doing their own thing without really necessarily like being totally focused on what everybody else is doing, and yet it somehow kind of pulls together in this really nice way.
What Greg said about it being fun, I think is what I referred to earlier. It's like that childish joy, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to think about that when the album was originally released, the first track, right, Fairy Tale wasn't on there, right? So No Side to Fall In would have been the opening track, right? So I think it's just cool to imagine like actually buying that album in 79 and looking at this artwork and thinking, what's this going to sound like? And then that song that we just heard playing.
Yeah, and later,
know?
like that whole like childish thing became kind of a cliche, you know, like with all the twee stuff. But like at the time they did that, that was a pretty new way of presenting yourself, you know, in music, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I think, that they're doing things very naturally, honestly, but trying things out, experimenting. And I guess what I was talking about before, Anna De Silva, with the way she was dressed, like these things they kind of created, then became, unfortunately, kind of codified later in like new wave dress, or, you know, like you said, like twee indie rock. They became like kind of hallmark characteristics and then lose that vitality, maybe. But yeah, I think they're just putting things together for the first time. And yeah, and I think that's a good point, like playing separately but together, so they're kind of an element of kind of playing for themselves and not well, you know, not overly concerned about what the audience, or maybe even the band members are thinking.
Yeah, it feels like they didn't sit down and say like, okay, let's work out the verse, you know, and like what are the root chords for this verse, you know, like you better figure that out if you're the bassist, you know, now we're going to work on our chorus. It's kind of like, it seems like it must have emerged a lot more organically than that.
And do you think it's as a result, or partially as a result, of this incredibly cramped rehearsal space? They were living and rehearsing in this space, right? I mean, can you hear that in the music? I mean, just I don't know, does that add to the intimacy, or the just everybody being on the same page, even though it sounds in danger of going off the rails? Do you think it's somehow related to just this physical intimacy?
Probably. It also probably has something to do with the lack of longevity of the band.
Oh, you can see the mattress, the sound padding mattress in the back. I didn't notice that before.
You definitely could see that, yeah, that kind of the joy, the fun they're having, a childlike wonder. Look at Palmolive looking up at Vicky playing, and yeah, that's incredibly. I mean, maybe they didn't, you know, and probably when they recorded, you know, they had more room. But yeah, I think she really, yeah, it was. I don't know.
What do you think about that drum kit, Greg?
It looks pretty like a pretty solid drum set, pretty Spartan. Oh, there's a cymbal. There is a cymbal. I was going to say there's no cymbal, but you can see it over on
Is
her
there two,
right
like one
there.
in the foreground, one in the background, right
Yeah,
next
there's
to
one
the,
here and then one here.
yeah.
Yeah, the hi-hat there, and then the ride cymbal. And yeah, we talked a little bit about before that. Well, Lara, you mentioned the shambolic nature of the band, and people talk about yeah, how it feels like it's, and you mentioned it's on the verge of falling apart. And it's the fact that 3/4 of the band were kind of untrained musicians. So maybe that unprofessionalism. But one thing with Palmolive's drumming, which is just very adventurous and wild. She keeps, she's just very active player. But I always think it seems to be, from my ears, I mean, of course, the overall sounds great, but her drumming seems very much on. On the beat. Like her timing seems quite sharp.
Yeah, I'm not good at
while still-
analyzing that kind of thing, but I would think it would have to be, because you don't get that, things just aren't as catchy, when the drumming is bad and when the drumming is off. It doesn't have
Yeah,
energy.
yeah. Right. Oh, her energy is there. She's doing like a lot of rolls, almost like a continuous roll, and it's driving the music.
Mhm. Yeah, like
So
typically I don't
if
think
she were
people feel
off
like
and
dancing when the drumming's really off.
right. Oh yeah.
Do you guys want to watch a short clip from that BBC documentary that mentions the Raincoats and shows some very vintage footage of them? So just a moment. Okay, so this is from a BBC documentary, Girls Will Be Girls. They show some old Raincoats footage.
Tonight.
And Gina Birch and Anna De Silva, who were so inspired by the Slits' first gig that they started their own band, the Raincoats, in November 1977. Within a few weeks, they were playing their first gig. The Raincoats preferred ideas to proficiency and counted John Lydon amongst their fans.
It was all about you putting your own ideas forth and bringing yourself to it. It wasn't copying this guitar player and doing these solos and lots of fancy stuff. It was about you bringing what you had to the fore.
As well as...
Yeah, it's cool. Cool to see that.
Yeah, it's so great. It's nice to see them looking so good.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah. Oh, it would have been something to be there.
Yeah, do you think
and
that
you can
was
hear
the sound from that was live, or do you think they dubbed in the sound from the album?
It sounded a bit muffled, though, didn't you think? So I thought it might have been live. But
I mean, if it was live, it sounded pretty good. They were like also saying they couldn't play, but that sounded great.
that would have been pretty early on too, I would think, before the album. So, but they were rehearsing hard, from what I read. So yeah, maybe maybe they were getting better kind of quickly.
And then, after that, after their footage, then they go into Chrissie Hynde there and the Pretenders. Sounds like Tattooed Love Boys. But you can hear the drumming there is like pretty typical. It's great for that song, but on the 2 and 4 and like so regimented, just shows you how Palmolive was doing something very different.
And can you explain anything about, like, as a drummer, about what she was doing different?
Well, well, I'm saying how she's doing something very different, and then I'll mention Keith Moon, who's, but he was a very innovative drum, but like kind of, she's like doing a roll kind of continuously, but, and then around the kit, you know, while usually it's like for typical rock and roll songs or rhythm and blues, it's, you know, you're even, and even if it's syncopated, where it's, you know, you're playing some accents on the offbeats, you're still playing kind of one pattern throughout, and then maybe, you know, do a roll for a transition or to highlight the verse going to the chorus back to the verse.
Do you think the way that she plays is like makes sense as an intuitive way for somebody who isn't trained, or do you think it's unusual even for somebody who isn't trained?
No, I think, no, I think that's a good point. It's probably intuitive, and I think it goes back to that kind of childlike sensibility where you just want to, you know, overriding feeling is to express yourself. And
Yeah, that's the next question I was going to ask you. You're a dad, you've got two rambunctious boys. You think, like, do your boys ever just like sit around and like do percussive stuff, you know, like playing along with things? Or
Graham is starting to, yeah, they move around a lot. They Nolan isn't as interested in like percussive stuff or playing the drums. I think I kind of jumped, what do they say, jumped the shark? Is that the right expression? I kind of forced the issue. When he turned 3 years old, I bought him a little drum set, and I think he played around with it. And then, you know, there'd be some mornings, all right, I'm going to play my drums, you're going to play your drums. But he eventually lost interest, which is fine.
because what I'm thinking about
he
is
shows,
like, well, what I'm thinking about is like, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking
But
about
he
like family evenings sitting around the campfire. There might be a little delay, that's why we keep talking over each other. But I'm thinking about family evenings sitting around the campfire, you know, like with one person pulls out a guitar or whatever, and like other people are just banging on stuff. You know, you grab a stick from like the wood pile or whatever, and you're banging on a chair,
Yeah.
or banging sticks together. And like there's things that, you know, untrained non-drummers will do percussively that sounds great. And I'm just wondering if like
Right.
that's what you're picking up on, because like I'm not good at analyzing. I never think about the drums when I listen to this album or most albums. You know, I just kind of take in the music as a whole. But I've heard
Right,
other
yeah.
people talk about like how unusual and interesting her drumming is, and I'm just trying to understand better. Like, okay, what is it that's so, like, if you can pick it apart, what is weird about her drumming?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Because as somebody who's like
well,
drummed a tiny, tiny little bit, I find it really hard to learn how to do a fill. You know, like I can like hold a beat, and I can hold even like
right,
a weird beat, but to try and like
right.
transition into a fill or something, like I don't think I could do that without having a little bit of training or a lot of practice.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a good point. And while she has that intuitive excitement and enthusiasm to play, those fills and are pretty technically on and difficult. Like
Interesting.
I would have to practice, and I don't know if I'd be able to do it.
That's really interesting.
So yeah, I think she's just, I think, probably naturally gifted.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the reason I first bought this album, I think I was living in Chicago, so it would have been 97 or so. I was like 24 or 25. Yeah, it's because Kurt Cobain would talk about how much he was a big fan of the Raincoats, right? And Yeah, he wrote liner notes for the CD that I had. And yeah, I probably would have read the liner notes on the way home, on the train before I listened to it. And I felt that it kind of put me in the right mind frame to listen to the Raincoats, right? So I liked what he said. When I listen to the Raincoats, I feel as if I'm a stowaway in an attic, violating and in the dark. Rather than listening to them, I feel like I'm listening in on them. We're together in the same old house, and I have to be completely still, or they will hear me spying from above. And if I get caught, everything will be ruined because it's their thing. They're playing their music for themselves, right? So I thought, I don't know. I felt that did put me in a good mind frame to first listen to them, right? And I feel like it's that intimacy that's in their music somehow.
Mhm.
Right?
And I think that ties into what I was trying to get at too when I was talking about how their music is very female, and again, like Greg, you told the story about, Palmolive rejecting Sid Vicious advances, and then, she says in at least a couple of interviews that she wanted to be in a band with girls, so that kind of thing didn't happen anymore, and you really get the sense that like this is like girls doing girl stuff, like in a room full of girls, for girls, like for themselves. It's not like the typical female fronted band where it's very much you know, at least partially designed for male consumption, So it totally makes sense to me what, Kurt is saying, feeling like he's almost not supposed to be listening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of self-deprecating too, in a way. Because there's the story. So when he's in London and he wants to find a Raincoats album, and so it's on the liner notes for Incesticide, right? Nirvana's Incesticide. He tells this story about trying to find a Raincoats album, and he ends up meeting Anna, and she doesn't have one handy, but she sends it to him later, right, with a letter and some other things. And he said how meaningful this was for him. He says one of the few really important things that I've been blessed with since becoming an untouchable boy genius. That's very funny.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think he was a good spokesman or at least, to get people to generate interest in that. I think he did a really great job of it. So, and it's how go ahead.
He was pretty intimately adjacent, to the whole Riot Girl thing too, as that exploded in that part of the world. So, so I feel like that also made him sympathetic to this particular type of girl sound.
So in the liner notes, he also mentions how much, or the Incesticide liner notes, he also mentions how much he loves Shonen Knife and how meaningful it was to him that Shonen Knife opened shows for them.
They're great too. Have you seen them in Japan? Do they still play?
Yeah, they still play, but I haven't seen them, unfortunately.
They came. Did we? So I don't know. I don't think I ever saw them in Japan, but they did. Lara and Dave. They came to the Mohawk place about 16 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a fun show.
Yeah, so just to give people idea of the timing of this in the Raincoats' career, right? So this is their debut album, 1979, right? All Music, the All Music Guide, right? This little A means that it's their recommended album.
It gets the A.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's kind of a widely held opinion. That's a good place to start with the Raincoats, I would say. Yeah, but their career was not so long as we alluded to, but still four albums, right? During this time period. So not bad.
I haven't heard any other album by the Raincoats. Have you?
I've
Lara,
definitely
Dave?
heard bits of the Kitchen Tape and Moving. I don't know if I've heard anything off of Out of Shape. I mean, can we look at a track listing, or
Um,
it's okay if you don't have any.
mm. Yeah, this isn't clickable.
Yeah.
Right here.
Forget that then. It's not
But
that
I'm a big fan of that song off Looking in the Shadows. Don't Be Mean. Do you know that song?
Mhm.
Don't Be
Yep,
Mean.
that's good.
Yeah, that's a great song. But continuing with okay, the track listing from the here you go. The track listing from the debut album, right? So No Side to Fall In, which we've heard. We heard a bit of Fairy Tale in the Supermarket, right, from that live footage. But this is side one of the album. Right, one thing you'll notice is that they do a cover of Lola by the Kinks, which is a very interesting choice. Yeah, so Lara, what do you think of their cover of Lola?
Oh, I love it so much. That and the Slits, Heard It Through the Grapevine, two of my favorite covers ever. I mean, Lola's a great song by the Kinks too. You know, it's like both versions are fantastic. I'm
Yeah,
not sure if I have much more to say about it.
But I was, well, just talking about the original version, the Kinks. I mean, you know, before the internet, when you would just hear songs on the radio, right? And like, you know, like when I was a kid and just listening to classic rock radio, there were certain songs that when you heard, it would like make your day. Like I'd be happy for 3 days because I heard Lola by the Kinks, you know? So I think it was like one of those very special songs, you know, I would say. And
Did you used to tape stuff off the radio?
yeah, sometimes, but you know, I kind of feel like we miss out on that, you know, a bit now where we have everything just on demand. I mean, just the joy of unexpectedly hearing a song you love is it's kind of sad that doesn't happen as often. But I also remember when I went to the so I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, right? So when they opened the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in '95, and they had this huge concert, right? Like this 9-hour star-studded concert at the stadium that my sister and I went to. And like it's almost too much, too many artists, too many songs. It was so long. Like 25 years later, I mean, the 2 songs I vividly remember, you know, out of that 9-hour concert is Aretha Franklin, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. I remember just being amazed how she could connect with a whole stadium of people, you know, singing that song. And the Kinks' Lola, like somehow that like, yeah, Ray Davies really he wanted to get the whole stadium to sing along, and he pulled it, like he made a whole stadium full of people like feel intimate with, you know, over this song. So I don't know, it's a pretty amazing song. So it's great to hear the Raincoats cover it and do such a great job with it, and it totally be their own thing, you know. So
Definitely.
it's weird. Go ahead, Greg.
And I think it kind of, I don't know, it kind of reaffirms the quality of the song, of Ray Davies' song. And in fact, I guess he's kind of addressing gender issues in a way. And, you know, and then, you know,
I think there's just layer upon layer of gender issues, you know, because the Kinks were quite masculine, but the song is undermining their masculinity. But then you have these girls who are doing some like masculine posturing, you know, covering it, but they're also girls. So there's all these layers of like, you know, reversal and complexity. And I think, but I also like that it's not, you know, it's not pedantic or, you know, like it's not lecturing. It's just playful and fun, you know.
Yeah, well said.
But do you understand what the Raincoats are saying by choosing to cover this? Because I kind of get lost in all the
I'm
layers.
guessing they just thought it was fun.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Yeah, it's like I love it, but there's almost something I feel I should understand about it that I don't quite. But
yeah, I think my preference is usually not to read more into it when it can be explained by "this sounds fun."
Yeah, as I mentioned to Greg, I'm a big fan of black and white, and yeah, I didn't go when they came to Japan in 2015, but I looked at the set list recently. I noticed they opened with black and white, which I think would be.
Do you want to hear some of that, Dave?
Yeah. And I had the lyrics handy because I like the lyrics is just like a set of questions, right? Is it love when I see your face on the rails? Repeated twice, right? And then this is just a longer question, right? When the black and white landscape makes me write this black and white song, question mark. Is it love when I fear you talking to me? Is it love when I fear you talking to me? And discover it was just a longing turned into a black and white song. Yeah, so I don't exactly know the meaning, but I love the there's something about like they ask the question, then they ask it again. It just kind of like kicks up the intensity of emotion. Like I really like that. Is it love when I don't know who you are? Repeated twice and have to look out the window to write this black and white song. Yeah, not sure what it means, but I love this song. But the line, Greg, because you asked about the rails, is it love when I see your face on the rails? So what that means to me is that, you know, like on a crowded train, you know, that she, you know, like all these people are going by and she imagines that she sees him or her love interest, right? And she's like, if I keep thinking that I see him, does that mean I'm in love with him? Like it means she can't get him off her mind, right? That's just
rails also kind of like implies a sense of inevitability, you know, like here's this path that's laid out ahead of me and I'm moving towards it, you know. So maybe that's what she's asking too, like are we destined for each other, you know?
Is it love
I'm so glad you chose that one. I forgot how good it was. It's like maybe one of their most punk, you think?
Kinda, yeah, yeah. I mean, I could see why they opened with it, you know?
What's amazing to me is like how you can make something that weird and also have it be so catchy, you know? The bass line is so weird.
But yeah, the bass sounds great in that.
Yeah.
So what's the high pitched
It
instrument?
sounded like some kind of horn to me.
It sounded like saxophone, but it played in a real kind of like E-part type of way, or trying to approximate bebop, or just doing it.
Yeah, usually I hate saxophone, but that's kind of
Yeah, it's not your yakety yak. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it almost sounds like, like that skronk of like kind of free jazz, like John Coltrane, but still really catchy. It's driving along, and
and the
and
drums like
Palmolive's,
sound almost like too wimpy to be driving, but like but it still has that great energy.
yeah, and she'll play like kind of like hit on the two, like the kind of 2 and 4, and like she plays the hi-hat like boom 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 boom, but then she'll just like hit, yeah, like you mentioned before, our syncopated beats, like she hits the snare where you normally wouldn't, and puts in these little fills where you normally don't, and then but then she's right back into it. Yeah.
What Lara said about forgetting how good that song was, I kind of feel that way about this album, because I mean, I listened to it a lot back in the day, but I haven't listened to it recently, and then I put it on to prepare for this, and if anything, it sounds better to me than it, like, I don't know, like, even maybe I'm listening to it more intently, but it's just, yeah, like, just everything's, the music just sounds great, like, I mean, it just
Yeah. And I'm going to say again, the most remarkable thing to me is that it's as weird as it is, and still also, I think, profoundly catchy, because like it's such a priority for me if I'm trying to make a song to want it to be catchy, and something that would be like, energetic and danceable. And usually I equate catchiness with being like fairly simple and straightforward, and to be able to like be that weird and still have it be like melodic is fascinating to me.
Okay, so Lara, you were going to share a Palmolive quote.
Yeah, this is from an interview that she did from Tom Tom magazine, and it was called "The Pilgrimage of Palmolive." And I just thought it was a really beautiful quote. And she's kind of addressing, I think her disillusionment with the punk rock scene as she got older, and what she felt were the drawbacks of it, without regretting anything. I think she valued that scene very much and valued her part in it, and valued getting to play a role in it. But she said, "I'm good at pointing fingers. I think punk rock was very good at pointing fingers, and we were right in many ways. But basically, we need to point fingers and then do something. We need to be the society we want to be. If I think people should have water, I should do something about it. If I think I care and want to love my neighbor, well, today's neighbors are all over the world." So I liked that one a lot.
Beautiful.
Yeah, very positive, and trying to be proactive
And
about
I
things.
I think when it comes to any kind of scene, like whether it's a punk scene or a new wave scene or like an art movement, or, people want it to be more cohesive than it actually is, you know, especially when these are youth movements. Like so much of youth, especially like in the modern era, has been about like being bratty and just rebelling against something. And that produces like these really amazing works of art and an amazing kind of energy. And it's a little bit sad to me that people grow out of that. Like there's definitely things I miss about being young and being in that mode of thought. But I think it's also inevitable that people like do kind of grow up and move on towards, well, what comes next, you know, like it's not enough to just say like no to everything around me and be a brat and stick out my tongue and want to destroy things. Now like I'm getting a little bit older and maybe I want to like do something positive and build something. And I'm not saying at all that these movements aren't positive, you know, because there's like really beautiful things that come out of them, but I also think it's kind of a natural progression.
Yeah, well said. Well, Mr. Genco, do you have any closing thoughts?
Well, yeah, thank you, Lara, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Dave, for setting up this forum.
My pleasure.
Should we hear some more of the Raincoats? I think we should. But what?
Sure. What trend are you thinking?
They're all great.
Yeah.
I like In Love a whole lot, but I'd be happy for somebody else to pick one too.
Well,
I like the
no,
Void,
I like that one too.
but I already picked one. Yeah, but I like the Void.
That one's fantastic as well.
Hmm.
Isn't that one that Courtney Love covered? I don't think I've ever heard her cover.
Yeah, they mentioned in the book. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I've ever heard it.
Yeah, I haven't heard it. Probably wouldn't. I haven't heard it, but I imagine it's yep, not as strong as the original.
I doubt it. Or stronger, but in the wrong way.
That's probably exactly.
Yeah, I'm In Love or yeah, because did I choose the first one?
I feel like I've chosen all of them. That's not true, actually. You chose Black and White.
Yeah, great.
I'd say In Love or Fairy Tale. I
we
love
just
that
heard
song
a tiny
too.
little snippet of that in the live footage.
Yeah, do you want to go out with that? Either Fairy Tale or In Love?
Fairy Tale is more iconic, right?
Yeah, I would say it's yeah. Greg, what do you think?
I would go with that, and it got the A from All Music.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we can go out with that. All right, just okay. Well, thank you for joining us again, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you enjoyed the show. That was episode 66. Greg, thanks for joining us again, as always. Lara, thanks for joining us. We'd love to have you back to talk Eno or any of the other interesting.
Tony Conrad or Brian Eno, we'll do those.
Yeah, we should definitely do Tony Conrad because we have David Graycon would also be up for talking about that. So okay, well, thanks for watching. Good night, everyone. We're gonna go out with the opening track of the album, or the later version of the album, opening track, I should say, an iconic song, Fairy Tale in the Supermarket. Okay.